Welcome back, everyone. My name is Steven Rodriguez. I'm your true champion, and today we're talking about Nova Grapplers. Let's get started. As I'm sure many of you know, today is the release date for EBO7 Heroic Evolution, and with that set comes a brand new archetype for the Nova Grappler clan, the hero archetype, quite specifically the Spinning Valiant archetype. And I'm really excited to show you guys this deck profile because I think it's a really interesting and cool way to play Nova Grappler right now that actually really helps with some of the disadvantages that Nova Grappler has against a lot of the clans in the format that it probably is really due, and that's rearguard protection. We'll get more on that a little bit later, but I'm really excited to show off this deck profile for you guys. I think it's going to be a really exciting deck in the format, and I think it's going to be adding a lot more diversity and just overall power in Standard in general, so I hope you guys are excited for that. I'll also be releasing other deck profiles coming out pretty soon for Dragonic Over the End, for Blade Master, and for, of course, Link Joker. So all that stuff is coming in the future, but today we're starting off with Nova Grappler. If you also want to see a gameplay demonstration video for this deck where I play with it against various decks in the format, all you gotta do is hit that like button. If this video hits 15 likes by Tuesday, July 23rd, then of course I'll be making that gameplay demonstration video for y'all. But if any of you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave it down in the comments below. I love answering questions, and if you enjoyed the deck profile, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications if you haven't already. Some big things are going to be happening. I don't want you guys to be missing out on anything. So yeah, with all that being said, I think it's time we got started. One quick little announcement before we get started with the video is that I am having a surprise sleep lock in celebration of my 21st birthday on Sunday, July 21st. My birthday was actually July 16th, but I'll be celebrating with you guys on Twitch this Sunday, so it's going to be super fun. I haven't announced the game yet that we're going to play, but I will announce it later this week on Twitter or Instagram, so be sure to follow me there if you guys want to know the full details of what we're going to be doing during the sleep lock. But just know, Sunday, July 21st, 5 p.m. PST, is the time that it's going to start. If you guys want to know more information about that, be sure to follow me on my Twitch channel so that way you guys can know when I go live with that said sleep lock, or just follow me in general if you want to support me further and come watch me live every now and then when I play Cardfight Vanguard, or when I play Pokemon, or when I just do whatever I feel like doing on Twitch. Also, if you want to pick up any of the cards that you're going to be seeing here on this video, because today is the actual release for EBO7, I highly recommend that you check out my True Champ Curriculum Episode 1 on the secondary market for trading card games up in the iCards above, because in that video I talk a lot about how to get cards for the best prices possible for you, an individual consumer. So if you want to pick up some of these cards as fast as possible for as cheap as possible, I definitely recommend you check out that video. It has a lot of information about it. About the economics of secondary markets and all that fun jazz when it comes to getting cards for card games. But with all that being said, I think I've bored you all long enough. Let's get into the actual Spinning Valiant Nova Grappler deck profile right now. Alright everyone, here we are in Cardfight area. Going to be showing you guys off the Spinning Valiant hero deck profile right now. But please be sure to remember that we have a like goal for this video. 15 likes and you guys can see an actual in-depth gameplay demonstration video from me for this deck. So if you guys want to know the little ins and outs of this deck, afterwards, or if you have any lingering questions, I'm sure they'll be answered by a video like that, but don't be afraid to leave it down in the comments below or ask me live in person on my Twitch channel, link in the description below as always. But anyway, with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about this deck. So Spinning Valiant. Alright, so you're going to see this deck. It's going to be a lot different than maybe past Nova Grappler decks you've seen either by me or by anybody else, because I think that you have to kind of think about this deck a lot differently than, say, a Nova Grappler deck, because Nova Grappler is kind of like consistent aggression or just turn dudes sideways, attack and win. And this deck is more or less the same idea, but it has this amazing combo potential and a really neat idea behind it. So, to get the idea of this deck, let's start off with Spinning Valiant. The VR for the set, Miwa's main grade 3, my boy. Let's talk about him. Nova Grappler, Excel, blah, blah, blah. Excel 2 is a very important thing to keep in mind. You almost always want to use either Excel 1 or Excel 2. For this deck, you actually have a choice between that. It's not like the Beast Deity deck where Excel 2 is almost always better. Here, Excel 1 could add some value, and I'll explain why in just a little bit. But let's talk about his effect. So his main effect that we're going to be worried about here is all units can only attack the Vanguard, both yours and your opponent's. Once you ride this card, your opponent is not allowed to attack anything besides your Vanguard, and you're not allowed to attack anything besides their Vanguard. Why this is important is because a lot of decks that don't have retire effects in them now can no longer deal with your rear guards. You can now just have as many rear guards in play as you want. And the idea is that you can just swarm the board with heroes and combo really well with cards like Girly Dolly, which we'll talk about in just a second. But the main win con of the deck is his second ability, which says when it attacks, if your front row has 4 more units until end of turn, this unit gets power plus 10k, then costs Counterblast 4, and when your opponent would call cards from his or her hand to Guardian Circle, he or she must call 3 or more cards at the same time. This does last for the entire turn, first of all. Second of all, the 10k plus effect is not reliant on you counterblasting 4, so if you ever have 4 units, he always gains 10k on swing. Super cool. Yeah, so you know those effects like Battledore Fighter or Drill the Duel, or even the new Kagero card, Branty the Dragon Dude, grade 2. These effects are super powerful, and in a deck where you have multiple rearguard attacks, as long as one of them is hitting for at least 5k difference, or as long as you're any amount over your opponent's Vanguard, you're going to be forcing 3 cards out of their hand. Really important thing to note here for this ruling is that it's every instance they guard. So for example, if they want to guard, say you were swinging 32k at their 12k, and they guarded 15k worth of shield using 3 cards, and then they guard with a 4th card, they don't stop. It's not 3 or more, it's every time you guard, you must guard with 3 cards. So think of it more so as, okay, I stopped this 5k with 1 5k, I put 2 more cards down. But if I want to stop this 30 or 40k attack, for example, with only 4 cards, I actually still have to put 6. So the idea isn't 3 or up, it's every time you would guard, it's 3 more times. So that can actually be really crazy. So don't let your opponent get away for dropping 4 cards. They need to drop 6 if they do that. Is kind of the idea that I'm getting at here. If it's anything less than 3, it's got to be 3. If it's anything more than 3, it's got to be 6 or more increments after that. Which is where Excel 1 can sometimes be a little bit better, because what you can do is you can hit better numbers. And the reason why Excel 2 isn't going to be as necessary, that +1 draw effect, you don't always need it all the time in certain matchups, because we do play 8 draw triggers in this deck. I'll get more into why we do that in just a second. But spinning Valiant kind of fixes this problem that Nova Grappler's been having, where if you're not a retired deck, you just attack their rear guards and run them out of resources, and then they can't really pressure you as hard anymore. Well, now you have to just give me resources and give me Counterblast until I get to that Counterblast 4. I have 4 more units in play. I'm going to swing at you 4 times. If you're at 4 or 5 damage, you still have to flush out 3 or more cards. Unless you have a 15-card hand or something, you're not going to be able to stop all those attacks. And there's all these little power gaining effects that we have, or multi-attacks still, because it's still a Nova Grappler deck. We'll talk more about that in just a second. And we can stop intercepts, so that way you guys don't do any cheesy stuff like that. It's going to be super exciting. I can't wait to talk more about this in just a second. But Spinning Valiant is a really cool deck archetype to me. I think it's a really awesome concept and really does help a lot of the problems that Nova Grappler has. And I'm really excited to show off this hero deck profile. And notice that his effect doesn't specify heroes; it specifies rear guards. Other effects in this deck do specify heroes, and we'll get to those when we get to them. But let's talk about Girly Dolly. And Girly Dolly is kind of a really interesting card. So if you have 5 or more heroes on rearguard circles, all of your guardians get shield plus 10k. Yes, this stacks. Yes, this works on rearguard. Yes, this works on Vanguard. This is an amazing. Yes, it works during your opponent's turn. During your turn, it doesn't matter because you can't call guardians during your turn anyway. But it does work during your turn, I guess. This card is super crazy awesome, and it's why we get to play these draw triggers, because essentially once you have 1 Girly Dolly plus 4 the rear plus 4 heroes in play, all your draw triggers are essentially 15k shield, which is awesome. Second, you can stack. So if you have 4 Girly Dollies in play that can't be attacked, if you're not versus a retire or affect a clan, then your draw triggers are 45k shield. That's just the basic thing right there, guys. So that's super huge. So we're abusing the effect of Girly Dolly with the protection given to us by Spinning Valiant to gain defense, to gain the ability to just kind of keep all of our draw triggers in our hand and guard with them. And by having all these draw triggers, because we're taking damage every single turn, because our opponent can only attack our Vanguard, we get to see more cards in our deck. So sometimes you don't need to go with Force 2 all the time. I will argue that Force 2 is arguably still better, because you just get to plus and have an extra rearguard circle. But you don't always. That if you really want that extra power, say you're playing against another Excel deck or playing against a Protect deck, you kind of don't really need that extra draw sometimes, because you're just fine. They're not pressuring you thanks to Girly Dolly. So weigh your options. I think it's a choice for this deck, not like Beast Deities where you almost always want to go for Excel 2, for example. So Girly Dolly, really awesome. Second, our last grade 3, we're playing 10 grade 3s by the way, is Miss Splendor. Miss Splendor is a really powerful card for heroes in general. During the battle that your hero attacked, if your opponent cannot intercept, if you have more rear guards than your opponent, the attacking unit gets plus 3k. So all of our heroes will get a plus 3k boost when they attack. We almost always have more rear guards than our opponent because they can't attack our rear guards and they don't have retire effects. I've been saying this over and over again. We're just going to have more. And then, obviously, stopping intercept is really nice because it adds to the combo of Valiant saying, we're going to go for the Counterblast 4, wombo kill you in one turn. And sometimes you don't even need it. Sometimes you just attack enough times and they just don't. They just lose because they can't kill your rear guards. That's a really neat idea, is that you don't even need to go big with spinning Valiant, but it's a nice, like, it will end the game. Spinning Valiant does. So Mistblender is a nice little way to add to that. I'm actually thinking of putting a third one in here because it's just so awesome to have as like a game ender, and I believe it does, to my knowledge, it does stack. So if you have two of them in play, they all gain 6k whenever they attack. So it's kind of like stupid sometimes what you can do with these cards. So that's a big deal. So those are our grade 3s. They're kind of just like spinning Valiant. And then a cool thing about Girly Dolly is that she does have Excel, so if you're forced to ride her first, it's no big deal. You can get an Excel circle still. If you ride Girly Dolly first ever, I do recommend always going Excel 2 no matter what matchup you're playing, because you need to kind of catch up, because it's not the best to ride this, and hopefully you never have to ride in this Splendor. But Spinning Valiant, God tier, really good card. Alright, my favorite card that ever came out ever is Stylish Hustler. I love this card so much. Vanguard Rearguard, when your other rearguard is retired by the ability of your opponent's card, cost Soul Blast 1 and return one of those cards to your hand. So good. It's so good. It basically negates retire effects, and it's so crazy. Not only do we have this protection against non-retire based clans from dealing with our rearguards, we also have this awesome answer to dealing with retire based effects. And the deck doesn't really have that much soul blasting problems, but we do have plenty of soul charging options in Nova Grappler right now. So I'm really happy with Stylish Hustler. And on top of that, he has this amazing second skill. It says when it attacks, this unit gets power plus 2k until end of turn for each card in your damage zone. So at least he's always going to be probably at least 6k, but at most plus 15k. That's crazy. And because we're always taking damage because our opponent can only attack our Vanguard, it's honestly just insane. So Stylish Hustler is an amazing addition to the Nova Grappler card set, and I love him very much. Next up is Kick Typhoon, Auto Vanguard Rearguard. When placed, if this unit is on Vanguard or an additional Rearguard circle, one of your units gets power plus 5k. That's a super nice little on-play effect that we really like, but the main reason why he's in here is when it attacks, if all of your front row Rearguard circles have a Rearguard on them, cost Counterblast 1 and stand one of your Rearguards. Whew, baby. This is a really free, awesome restanding effect in Nova Grappler, which is super awesome, as always. But it's a rearguard standing effect. It's not a Vanguard-centric one, so it's super cool, and you can do all kinds of cool chaining combos. And we'll get to more as to why this is actually not that big of a deal, because you guys are probably asking yourself, Steven, we need to save 4 counterblasts for spinning Valiant. We can't afford to use this. Trust me, we have plenty of counter-charging options in this deck, and I'll show you some in just a second. But Kick Typhoon, even though he's not a hero, is a welcome addition into this deck, and it's super awesome. By the way, Spinning Hustler is a hero. Busted. Just pointing that out there. Next up is Boomerang Thrower. He's one of our main ways to countercharge and soul charge whenever we're like really behind, either in the early game where we use a little bit too many effects, or in the late game after we use a Spinning Valiant, for example. We can actually recharge and still do more stuff the following turn if our opponent survived, which most likely they don't. But, you know, nice little option here. In the early game when we have like 1 or 2 damage and we're wanting to use skills like Kick Typhoon, or even where's another one? That's kind of the only counterblast in here, I believe. No, right here. Or Smash Masher. Then Boomerang Thrower can help maintain that. Next up is Cup Bowler. He's kind of our main beat stick of the deck. I've been thinking of adding a third one in here because it's just nice to have a good beater. For example, if you have 2 Miss Splendors, he hits 20k, for example, or 17k with 1, which is just super nice. But hitting 14 or 24 by himself is super awesome on an Excel circle, or even 19k if he's on an Excel 2. So Cup Bowler is just a nice little beat stick hero in the deck that's just super awesome. And he does work continuous, so he is a 14k Vanguard attacker, so if you're playing against Force, you can still hit numbers against them. I believe your Rearguard only for plus 3k on him, so good to keep in mind. Also, I believe you can only increase your other units, right? No, one of your units, so you can actually increase Kick Typhoon on right as well. So neat little ways to hit Force on right. Never really comes up, but it's important to keep in mind. So that's it for our grade 2s. A little light on the grade 2s in Nova Grappler deck because, you know, grade 2s are our main attackers in a lot of decks. But in here, we kind of just want to spam the board with our amazing grade 3s that just don't die, thanks to our spinning Valiant. The best grade 1 in the deck is Smash Masher, not even a question. Auto Rearguard, when it attacks, costs Counterblast 1, and this unit gets power plus 5k until end of turn for each card in your damage zone. That's insane. He can gain plus 25k by himself, 33k, 43k, 38k on any Excel marker, you know, like insane. And then his second effect, if that wasn't already broken enough, is at the end of your turn, if you have a grade 3 hero, Vanguard, put this unit into the soul and countercharge 1. This card is resources the card, and it's the best beat stick we have in the deck, so that's just super insane. Max out 4 of it. It's the best card in the deck. Moving on to our best ride in the deck, turn 1, is Spin Kid. Really like this card, actually. I think he's a super cool card. When written from a grade 0 cost, reveal a spinning Valiant from your hand and deal 1 damage to your and your opponent's Vanguard. So we each take a damage, and that's it. And we each perform a damage check, and if we get triggers, we get triggers. Super awesome effect, actually. You're saying to yourself, Steven, why do you want to damage yourself? Because you want Counterblast. You want to do this ASAP, and you also want to do as much damage to your opponent as possible. We only play 3 of it, though, because he doesn't do anything else besides that on-ride skill. Also, it's kind of a very greedy turn 1 play. I don't really like to do it when you go second, but if you do go second and they don't get a damage trigger, then you can kind of hit them really hard. It's just a really nice on-ride effect that lets us be aggressive from the get-go, and it's way less costly than cards like Razor Custom. Also, he's a hero, and he's one of the only hero grade 1s we can run anyway, and I really like him in the deck. Moving on, we got 3, Rocket Hammerman. When it boosts a hero, costs Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets power plus 5k until end of turn. I wish it was when it boosts or when it attacks. If it was, this card would already be broken. But he's just good enough to play in the deck because having a better booster for cards like Girly Dolly or even Miss Splendor or especially Stylish Hustler is really awesome because you can hit amazing magic numbers like 27 on your rear guard, which is super awesome. And just having Rocket Hammerman be another hero that can gain power is super cool. Also, he does use Soul, which is awesome because he's not a counterblast cost, which the deck needs to make sure that we maintain. And thanks to cards like Screaming and Dance and Announcer, Shout, Smash Masher, and of course, Boomerang Thrower, we have plenty of Soul in the deck. The reason why we're playing 2 Shout in this deck is because 2 reasons. One, let me explain what he does first. So Shout here, 6k grade 1, keep that in mind. Cost Restless unit. You and your opponent reveal a top card of his or her deck. If they have different grades each, the fighter who revealed the greatest grade draws a card, and the fighter who revealed the lowest grade soul charges 1. If they have the same grade, you and your opponent draw a card. So Shout is just resources the card. And in a deck where we're just trying to set up a big old combo play that just kills our opponent, it doesn't matter how many cards are in their hand. As long as it's not like 15 cards, for example, they're going to die on that turn. So giving them 1 extra or giving them an extra every now and then isn't really going to do much. And any chance we get to either draw cards or soul charge in this deck is going to be super huge. Also, him being 6k doesn't actually hurt that much because if he's on an Excel circle, he gains 10k, he goes to 16, he attacks a Vanguard, they still have the guard with 3 cards during that turn, so he's still a reasonable attacker no matter what matchup you're playing against if you're using Excel 1 for that matchup. So I think Shout adds plenty of utility to this deck. I also think he helps out in the main strategy. But if you don't want to play Shout, you can easily just replace him with 1 Rocket Hammerman and 1 Spin Kid and just max out your heroes. I totally agree. But because of the security that this deck has from retiring or even attacks on the rearguard circles, I really feel like you have the space to run cards like Shout or like Kick Typhoon. So those are like our generic cards that we play. These cards are super awesome. I highly recommend playing Shout. Also, if you ride them, it's not the end of the world. You can like damage deny your opponent, which sometimes is a good thing, depending on the matchup. So I definitely think Shout gives your deck more options, if anything. And options are always great. So yeah, that's kind of the main bulk of the deck. Now let's talk about the triggers. I mentioned before that we're playing 8 draw triggers, and so like think of it this way, like. If we have 4 Girly Dollies in play, not only are these 45k shields, these perfect guards are 40k shield. You know, you don't even need to use their perfect guard effect to guard an attack. So because you're always forced to take damage, or because you can just take damage sometimes, and you want to have as much damage as possible so you can maximize your effects, you want to see draw triggers whenever possible. Also, you don't care about crits because you want to just attack your opponent enough times to kill them at the end of the game. Front triggers, that's why we're still playing fronts. I think you could play crits if you want to kind of accelerate your game plan at the very end. I don't think that hurts you, but I think just having more attacks that can hit numbers is what matters. For sure. And thanks to the synergy of Girly Dolly, just the draw triggers just makes so much sense to me. But this deck can even function in the opposite kind of sense, where if you think about it this way, you can play 3 draw triggers or even 0. You could arguably play 0 draw triggers and just play crits and fronts and just try and blow your opponent up with your aggression. I would not yell at you for doing that because, again, you have all this extra shield in your deck. And then you can only strictly play Force 2 at that point, I think, arguably. But by playing the draw triggers, you get to basically have a choice of Excel 1 or Excel 2. I said Force earlier. I meant Excel. I apologize. But so I hope that this makes sense to you. I built this deck to have options to deal with any kind of strategy against it, whether it be retire decks or non-retire decks. And against the non-retire deck, you basically just put your dudes on play your Girly Dollies, and you survive every single turn until you go for your big Counterblast 4, kill your opponent. And it works. It really does. So I hope you guys like this deck. If you have any questions for me about how this deck may play or what you could add to it in the future, don't be afraid to leave a question down in the comments below or ask me live and in person on my Twitch channel, link in the description below. And yeah, I really like this deck right now. I'll be talking a little bit more about what Beast Deities do and what this deck does and how it's a little bit different when I do my Beast Deity deck profile later on next week. I'm still working out the kinks for the perfect list for that one, but this deck, I've had this deck in mind ever since I saw Spinning Valiant, and I'm like, oh, this is how this deck is going to play in my mind. If you want to be more aggressive with it, you can. I don't think you need to, though, because to me, it's a combo deck. To me, it's a broken, spam the board, eventually combo deck that just tries to beat your opponent because it can just survive, and it can do all these things that Nova Grappler probably shouldn't do. Like, it shouldn't be able to protect its rear guards, but it does, and that's crazy to me. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile. If you did, don't forget to leave a like if you guys want to see that amazing gameplay demonstration video, and let's hop over to me for an outro. Alright everyone, that wraps up our Nova Grappler Spinning Valiant Hero deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tick that bell for notifications. That way you guys know when my videos go live for you, and so you don't miss out on some of the amazing things that's going to be happening here on this channel for both Cardfight Vanguard and Pokemon TCG alike, or really just nerd fandom in general, because I just love talking about the things that I love and love talking about the things that y'all love. If you have any lingering questions, don't be afraid to leave it down in the comments below, or follow me on Twitch and ask me live and in person. I love talking about card games. I love talking to all of you, members of the True Squad. This channel grows every single day, and the community that I'm getting to know and getting to build is blowing my mind, and I am so grateful. But anywho, with all that being said, don't forget about our sleep lock on Sunday, July 21st, 5 p.m. PST. It's going to be a blowout. But anywho, as always, I have been your True Champion, Steven. Always remember to work hard, rest easy, and live well, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.